who's to know what is what and what is real and what is not? Right now, there's no way to know the identity of who's behind anything that's going on. And so that could already be happening and we wouldn't know it. And I think that's like the most simple way to think about this is like, what are you seeing? What are you reading? What are you watching on video? And what is the identity behind it is like a really simple and easy question to think about.
Why, hello, friends. How's it going?
Hey, guys.
Hello. I'm extra squeaky today. I'm battling a little cold, but I'm here.
You're here. Brit's here. Dave's here. Sam's here.
Yeah.
It's the full quad. Well, welcome everyone to this week's episode of More or Less, where we take you behind the headlines, around the headlines, in front of the headlines, inside the headlines, tell you actually what is going on, and occasionally debate. I feel like this is going to be a debating episode, guys, because we're going to get into it on the news of the week, which is AI regulation. And of course, since it's us, we're gonna look ahead because we don't like looking backwards. So I am psyched for everyone's AI predictions as we kind of talk about regulation. But before we dig into that, what else is cooking? Like, how's the week been?
Halloween. Do you guys think about the Roman Empire?
Well, the lessons ended up kind of split between the Romans and the Greeks because Amazon doesn't really specify very clearly when you're ordering last minute costumes. But our eldest, had an idea of being Odysseus, which was then picked up by our middle.
I love that your 6-year-old son wanted to be Odysseus.
He did, yes.
First plug of the episode, Greeking out.
Yes. Greeking out for all of you. Oh, best podcast ever. Ooh. The greatest stories in history told in Greek mythology. Greeking out.
Actually, This is a great rec. For any parent out there that doesn't know about it, Greeking Out is definitely the best podcast. It's the entire, Greek mythology. And they've actually gone into other mythologies now, told for kids in 30-minute podcasts. And it's fabulous.
Cool. I'm excited about this.
Hey, whatever gets Sam in a toga makes me happy.
I mean, Sam, did you see the length of that toga? I was like,
who ordered it? Not me.
Did you have a train on your toga? Did someone have to carry it for you?
I felt reverse sexist because somehow my wife bought me the short toga and her the long one.
Again, Amazon doesn't specify. When you're just plugging away, they don't specify. But anyway, well, I saw that you guys always have the best costumes, but also, Brit, we got to talk about you hosting a dog costume contest. Please explain this.
Okay, well. Infused with data, as you know, I like to do. There are more dogs than children in the Bay Area, and Halloween is the largest holiday. Brings in $12 billion in economic growth for the U.S. And I just thought to myself, why aren't there more dog Halloween contests?
As one does.
We are. Slow Ventures I'm not sure we still are, but was the premier dog investor for many years.
It's
true.
Were
the dog VC.
Yeah, exactly. See, you know
Rest
the data.
in peace, our former dog Pixel. Big inspiration for that.
Oh, loved Pixel. But the dog DNA, that one really took off, right? That was your rocket ship.
That was a good
Bark
one.
has done quite well. Wag, Rover.
It was a Harvard reunion, and the CEO, the now CEO, pitched me and Matt Salzberg, the founder of Blue Apron, the idea of, look, 23andMe, but for dogs, right?
Such a good idea.
And it's it hits all the notes, right? People can't afford children anymore, so they care more about their dogs. And and the thing about dogs is they're kind of like people, but completely unregulated. So it's
or kind of like AI, but unregulated.
It's the best, right? Why wouldn't you want humans? People spend as much money, but there are no rules. What else could you want?
Brit, what was the highlight of this extravaganza? It seemed from the socials that it went quite well.
way more packed than I expected.
Yeah, it was completely insane.
Have never seen that many dogs in costumes. So what I learned was we need like a real production crew next year. I was just winging it this year. We brought like our own Bluetooth speakers from home and stuff. Like next year, it's going to be dialed. So if you're in the Bay Area,
it was a big Bluetooth speaker, but like way too many people showed up.
No, we're going to have AV teams. We're going to have podiums. Like it's going to be legit. So 2024. Mark your calendar.
You told me that you're actually accidentally going to end up building the next Westminster dog show. Because who gives a shit about their dog doing dumb tricks or like how bred it is? I just wanted in cute costumes for Instagram.
Also, by the way, if you know Brit & Co., my first company, like Halloween is the Super Bowl of the year. Like it is everywhere on the internet. And we have a lot of data around dogs too. And so like I'm kind of known for this. So I feel like this is like a legacy thing that I can leave for the Bay Area.
Aim higher, Brit. Aim higher. I like it, but you can also aim higher.
I got two things. First product pitch of the idea. Please build it. As you all know, I'm very skeptical on AI investing. I don't really believe in it. I do actually believe that an AI dog that I can post on Instagram, I don't take care of it, but it has all the properties of a dog, right, is a thing. Like, you know, like.
Just so you know, I used AI to fully make all of the marketing materials, the signage, the banners, the website for the Howl-O-Ween contest. And I had a really amazing experience with it. So they are AI dogs,
Brit,
Sam.
What? And this is a great transition. Okay, so but Brit, you are the AI ninja. Brit saved me. I had an amazing, we had an awesome women's event last week. Thank you to everyone who came out. Brit was there. We had hundreds of amazing women, and I just had a tremendous fun, and I'm so grateful to everyone. There was a shot of me and Katy Perry that I wanted to post on the internet, and my mic cord was showing. And in 2 seconds, I said, I know Brit can fix this. She fixed it in about 30 seconds. Now, tell me what you did. What app, what buttons did you press? Because now I am mic cord free on the internet forever.
This is not an investment or an endorsement, but I used the app Photo Leap, which also has a sister app called Video Leap. And you just like highlight an area that you want to change in a photo or a video. And then you type into the text field what you want it to change to. And then it's done. And so like we use this for our holiday cards because my 9-year-old decided he would only wear flip-flops to the family photo shoot. And I said, fine, because I knew I could AI some like nice brown boots on him later, which I did. So
it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually tried this and I couldn't figure out how to do this. So maybe we'll need a Photo Leap tutorial, but.
Well, but according to Biden's executive order, I now need to like trade or like watermark my holiday photos, right?
Yes. Well, let's see. So this is we all knew that more AI regulation was coming. I'll just recap for those of you listeners some of the big moves of the week. But this of course has sparked a debate. Is this too heavy hand and stifling regulation? Is this not enough? But between the US and the EU, there's a lot. So here are some of the details of the regulation. I think the Biden's executive order focuses a lot on kind of monitoring the compute side of things. So if you are training a model at a certain scale, so these are the Googles, the Anthropics, the Microsofts, you need to register the model. You need to kind of make assertions about how it works. You have to share the results of the safety testing that you're doing, which I don't think there's a ton of detail on. But basically, the order is targeting really the really, really big models and how they work. The EU is doing some of that, but also taking a different approach in saying, if you are in healthcare or law enforcement or these highly sensitive areas, you have to, there's more regulation on what you can and can't do with the model. So kind of like focusing a little bit more on the application layer and targeting very, I guess, what they call sensitive areas or specific areas. But, and then the EU also is having this sort of registered database kind of thing where if you're doing these things, you need to kind of like register your models. So I guess I personally felt like this was not the heaviest regulatory touch. I mean, I have a lot of questions about how this is actually going to work and to create these agencies and partnerships where there's now like public-private safety testing and like that's new for a lot of this, but it doesn't seem, I guess, like insurmountable in the stifling innovation. But a lot of techies feel the opposite. And there's a lot of criticism that this is, beyond kind of a heavy hand. And also the other bit of criticism is that it kind of locks in the incumbents in some ways because
that's what regulation does.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Sam, what do you think? What was your reaction?
Look, I think high level, I think it's actually good that the government is like, my basic view of the government is basically there's been 3 eras of tech they've cared about. The first was social networking. They were super late to thinking about it or considering it, and it's kind of a clusterfuck.
Arguably still late.
Still late. Then there was crypto, but they said, don't fool me twice, right? And like they basically, and we also have a ton of financial regulation that already exists. So they were again slow in thinking about it. And I wouldn't say the laws are good, but you have kind of existing regulatory infrastructure that is both scrapping over what to do and just being generally ineffective and not giving guidance, but then going after people, et cetera. But that's partially because there's so much legacy infrastructure, right, that existed, and they're trying to figure out how to name it. Now we're in level 3 where the government's clearly in the technology matters. We can't just like stay out of this battle. And we're not going to be fooled again. We maybe got fooled by Uber locally. We got fooled all these times. We can't keep looking like idiots and not taking technology seriously. So we got to do something. But then the question is what? My biggest question on all this type of stuff is my unfortunate, I'll call it realpolitik view of the world, is that Washington really doesn't understand any of this stuff. And what they do is they rely upon voices in Silicon Valley, the very small number of them that have chosen to build relationships in Washington, right? And so this is all driven by lobbyists, right, and lobbyist interests. The government says we have to do something, and I actually agree we have to do something, but then what the actual assessment is and what should be done is really 100% driven by the small number of technologists who consider themselves statesmen and have built relationships in Washington.
I mean, this is driven by Eric Schmidt, let's just say it, which I don't think is like good or bad necessarily. But like, I think he went in there and said, here's what you should do. And they did it. That's my read of it.
Yeah. And I think like some of this stuff is silly. Like the registering big models, like, sure, it's a total gimme. Like no one cares. Like the reality is that like to train a model at super scale anyway, it's not you're going to hide that, right? You've bought so much fucking hardware that like it's like obvious what you're doing in the US. Obviously, you can't touch anything outside the US, which we'll get into in a second, meaningfully. And then you have kind of the details of what you do and da-da-da. It'll certainly lock in incumbents. It'll certainly, be distortionary in certain ways. I don't think it's like a super heavy hand at this point. Look, the bigger problem with all this stuff, and I think the thing I've really come to across a bunch of chapters of what's going on in tech right now is just the internet is done. Right. The open global internet is over and is like a problem at this point in certain ways. And like we do need to go to like national tech stacks in various forms with stronger borders. And this is yet another place where like
is the national tech stack by definition more government controlled? Like what do you mean by national tech stack?
I don't know. I think that like I think about this from a social networking perspective.
I think it 100% is. But keep going.
Yeah. Well, like, look, I mean, here's the thing. There's this raging debate, if you hadn't noticed on the internet right now, about global free speech. And it was like, free speech, American value. It's like, well, for Americans, right? Like speaking to Americans, right? In a, not necessarily a global shouting match. Like that's not the point of it. You don't get to speak. Forget whether you're a bot or not, right? Like the idea that speech is like globally open to all comers in the United States, right? Just because, whether or not you're human, if you are human is like not the right way to think about things. And I think that like we all had this utopian dream that the world would be open and like we'd have like this global Pax Americana living thing. And like, nope. Like instead, like we're going to have to think about, yes, we want to hear from all Americans. Yes, Americans should have free speech. Yes, like different countries will make different choices about what they want to allow with crypto, what they want to allow with, AI. And I think that's all valid for countries to choose. But we're in a very weird place right now because I think a lot of people really want to hold on to this globalized dream and like it's coming crashing down.
Yeah, I think that's crashed. I think we've done a good job on the podcast talking about that crashing. I think what's interesting now is we're kind of seeing through AI regulation what at least the government wants to emerge in its place and what those new tech stacks and relationships look like. So,
although I think it's hard to talk about what the government wants, right? The government is just a bunch of people and regulators with different interests, right?
Of
And
course.
unfortunately, that are influenced by different voices. So I don't think I think it's good that there is AI regulation. I think it's been a cute trick that a bunch of the incumbents to date, and then we'll call out OpenAI, for instance, has been saying, oh, we're the good guys, regulate AI. And you're like, yeah, of course, that trick is a little old, guys, right? In terms of it's a pretty transparent trick in terms of trying you guys to try lock in some status.
But it's also can we all agree that AI should be regulated?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, Dave, what do you think of what's coming, what the picture is forming now with some of these executive orders, which, again, to Sam's point, are as much a political statement as an actionable strategy?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing in the order that I was inspired by is that the order directed every federal agency, if I read it correctly, it directed every single agency that matters to appoint a head of AI. And to Sam's point, I think that we are far past time of needing this American technology stack, right? And we need to think about it this way to be competitive globally in the modern internet and technology environment. And the fact that's in this order to me was very inspiring. This notion that we're actually going to start thinking about AI at a federal level, that the agencies have been directed to think about how to deploy and build AI across the entire system, right? To me, that's actually one of the most important things here. I'm kind of less interested in the regulatory capture. I mean, I'm with Sam that, it's unfortunate that the people who represent Silicon Valley are largely from big tech. That's called American innovation. I'd love to see somebody from startup land at the table representing the small innovators. We talk about
I think that's happening, by the way. Did you guys notice that Luther Lowe, who was he was a longtime policy person at Yelp and was the one who really led the charge. He's been leading the kind of anti-Google antitrust charge for, I don't know, maybe a decade. He joined Y Combinator. So, and I think there's some
And he was
sense,
at the table?
I don't know if he was at the table on this, but I think, he's often at the table and moved from the kind of the Google antagonist camp to the sort of startup world.
And look, love it or hate it, the reality is that the people who are quote unquote at the table that represent small tech are venture capitalists, right? Because they care about small tech in general. Now the problem is they get captured by their biggest winners, right? And so they're just talking the book of whatever thing is winning on there. But it's really hard. To start a founder should be spending their time in Washington. They have better shit to do, right? And so that's I think the real tension is with these things. It is going to be the incumbents who get to talk to Washington. Right. And they do have their own agendas. Right.
Brit, what do you think?
I just want to know who these people are. It feels like we're entering a phase where, yes, it's great to have more tech representation within the government, but should we be voting on it? Should it be more democratic? Who are these people? There's no transparency into how the sausage is getting made there. And I think this has such broad implications for the future of where we go in this world, right? And I think the problem with all the regulation stuff is the genie's out of the bottle. It's going to be so hard to police. Sure, we'll capture maybe 80% of it, but there's going to be so much random stuff that makes its way through anyway. And I think we have a many years battle ahead of us to discern what is AI, what's not, what's going on. There's a lot of user education that we have to get through and more policies and changing regulations. And I think often the problem is that when regulation comes this fast and this hard, it's very stifling and it's hard to go to sort of ease up. It's always easier to add more, but it's hard to let go.
I'll also say, I think there's this other problem that is very AI relevant in this moment, which is that the difference between academic research and application has collapsed too much to the point that, look, I think we would all say AI research should be done, in universities and controlled environments, away from business and away from politics, any way they want. No one wants to stop innovation, right? And I think that's true. And if you look at I think this is very relevant because you see what's happening, how these universities are being drawn into these political battles and like losing and screwing it up. But it's like I would love a world we can go back to, which is the point of the academy, the point of real science, the point of research is to go off into the woods, take some money and some talent, do whatever the hell you want to learn in a safe, secluded environment out of the sphere. The problem is that the world we've come to is no longer the world of these types of government funded projects. Universities are no longer secluded. The difference between we figured something out intellectually and we're applying it is like days to months, not years to decades. And I think that's super dangerous because you basically end up with this thing where like you have this tension, which is you don't want to stop research and innovation, but also this stuff is there's no ability to like put like some sort of barrier between intellectual research and then practical application. Google was kind of a good example at the start of this, like in terms of that, how research project that became very practical, like overnight. OpenAI couches itself as a research institution, right? Which is how it attracts a lot of talent and how it tells this great big story. But like then they're immediately releasing this stuff into the world.
Well, that was what OpenAI really changed the game on. I mean, they took research that was done from really, the Google world, and they commercialized it. And they said, we're going to hire researchers and literally sit them next to world-class software engineers. And that's absolutely right. I mean, Sam, I wonder if part of why that's happening too is just the costs. I mean, it's going to be tens of billions of dollars to train these models going forward. And that's not, a research lab at Stanford kind of
but
stuff.
It is like the government project. I mean, I think like that is the Manhattan Project. And I just think it's like, to me, it's like we've done this, we basically have ended up in this weird place where, industry has the dollars and the will to do a lot of like really big picture research, which has historically not been true, right?
Yeah.
Business has been like this application layer thing. And I just think that drawing academic and intellectual research, whether it should have been done in labs privately by the government, and I think there's good arguments for that in a lot of cases, whether it should be done, in secluded universities, but it shouldn't be in the field, right? So quickly. And the problem is that there's no way to really stop that at this point. That's obvious, right? I do think, and like I think that's the interesting, we're not going to see a law that says PhDs can't work in industry, right? Like, or in like a setting, and like I don't know how to reestablish those borders, but that was, I think, actually the way that it should be done and what's been broken recently, right?
But doesn't technology break it? I mean, it's one thing if you're building a nuclear bomb, it's another thing if you're building software, right? I mean, how do you, it just seems like those barriers would inevitably have kind of been broken. But
I mean, I think one of the interesting things when reading through this, I was just reading through pieces of it to remind myself, is that this executive order invokes the Defense Production Act, which is actually a pretty big deal. Like doing that is, it's a pretty rare thing that a president does. It kind of actually does force collaboration in ways that otherwise this would be a bunch of words on a page that may or may not, incentivize anybody to do anything. And that's actually, I think, an interesting piece of this. And I don't know if that plays into the conversation that we're having right now. But
I think that's a great call out, Dave, personally, because I think that's like exactly right. Like, and I think the really big problem we have right now is we don't even know how to define if we're at war anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And like, if you think about it, it's like free speech is a great one, right? Because free speech, like we believe in Americans should be able to speak freely to other Americans, right? Like we believe in free speech. But throughout history, we absolutely shut down free speech in times of war. Right. And like that's totally been accepted. It's not an unlimited right. It's, there are places where you stop it. Other countries have much more stringent lines, this type of stuff. We're now fighting multiple proxy wars around the world.
Yeah.
Right. And the interesting part is like they're bleeding into the home front in so many ways because, again, we go TikTok has a lot of reach in the US, things like that.
I was going to say this exact thing, Sam, which is that I really was looking through this executive order for far more defense related conversation because, we've got a AI war already playing out on American turf and it's called TikTok.
But wait, well, what are you guys? So just be clear about what you're arguing. Like, what should happen?
I think here's the problem. I think we are at war right now in like the technological world, and like we have no defenses in terms of like how this war is playing out on our home front.
Yeah.
Like it's not, and we're fighting proxy wars in the Ukraine, unfortunately now in Israel, and I also think on the home front, literally, right? And The problem is that the US, we haven't declared war in like forever because we don't even have the will to do that anymore. So everything is done through like executive orders, right? In terms of like, the defense stuff we do. Like we don't have, and so because we can never declare we're at war, we end up in these weird places, right? I think with speech, with the internet, with AI regulation, where like we all kind of recognize that this is all defense relevant and like we need to defend ourselves, but we can't actually get the gumption together like to fully do it. Now, I'm glad we did something. Like I'm glad we're moving in the right step, but it is a really weird time from that perspective. People have talked forever about the future of digital warfare, right? And I think like what we're going to look back on in 20 years and realize, oh my God, we actually are at war and we are being assaulted right now on the home front, but we don't even fully recognize the attack.
I think this is why it's like so ever important, like what's going to happen in 2024 with this election, right? Like, I'm not seeing a lot of optimism in the candidates coming to the table, and I don't know if anything's going to have such a drastic change to pull us out of this, or if like I don't know if what you guys think, if there's like some candidate that might win that could lead us in the right direction, but it feels like we've got like 4 to 5 more years at least of the status quo, which is going to end in a bad way.
Well, Biden, I don't know. I think Biden's been doing a reasonable job recently. Like I historically have not been a fan of Biden, but I do think like you see some stuff stepping up here in a few different corridors, right? So I do, but I don't think, one thing I was thinking about writing a screenshot essay on this because I've been mulling this a bunch, is I think technologists are really good at problems where there's a defined solution that can be achieved, right? Like technology, the entire Silicon Valley mentality is like, comes down to binary and like solutions. And so
it's like make this number go up.
Or just like solve this problem. Like I want to do this if it's solvable. The problem with a lot of this stuff is you get into is like, there is no solution, right? It's just an ongoing forever war. And I think technologists are uniquely bad at this. Like I actually think this is one of the big conflicts between Washington and out West is like technologists only think in terms of final solutions. And candidly, they're not even really willing to work on things that aren't like balanced final solutions. Whereas I think Washington, like the East Coast, is much more like it's an ongoing war for forever, right? And you're trying to find balances and the right, kind of compromises.
You're in the like mitigation strategy or so.
Yeah, and you like take pride in holding things together. And I talk to so many technologists who like the second the problem becomes obviously unwinnable, they're just uninterested in it. Right. And like unwilling to engage in it. And
I think there's some of us that are interested in it. I think
very few.
Maybe the older you get.
Dave, are you one of them? Dave, how are you going to solve the problem?
But it's not solvable. That's the thing.
Dave, what would you do as president?
I mean, I think what we're asking for here is an American tech stack, right? Like we need to take the American tech stack very, very seriously.
I don't know, guys. I'm just like, why are we back? I understand the internet is no longer global, but like we've really decided that the government is the one that should run.
No, Jess, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
There's like these important things where we need to provide for our national defense and safety, right?
Yes,
like we need to give Americans identity that's protected and safe on the internet. We need to make sure that we understand what is going on with social media systems that are developed in other countries that have enormous reach on our turf. We need to understand, is AI at play in those social media environments? How is it affecting the minds and hearts and souls of Americans? And we need to be able to defend ourselves.
I will remind everyone that TikTok's proposal for how it wants to exist in the US is it teamed up with Larry Ellison. It spent, it proposed, and this is like they're kind of waiting for approval because it's just a political football at this point, to spend $1 billion a year, running TikTok on basically government approved. I mean, there's no one more connected in these circles than Larry Ellison kind of servers, right? And now the government has not approved that because, again, they're just using it as a political football. But is that that is basically saying, okay, Chinese company, you can exist, but on American tech stack. But then the critics go, okay, but like what about the data being sent? What about the people working, right? Like, where do you kind of...
We need to know these things. I mean, I view this as actually a conservative issue. Like, it's surprising to me that the conservative side of the conversation is not demanding this and wanting it to be done faster. Like, this is absolutely a war front for us, and we're just not moving fast enough. And it's like a really bad, I mean, I think you can see it playing out in so many different ways in the last many weeks, right? Like, you've just got this like really serious problem.
Well, and I think the question is just like, again, if we're in a war, or like the question is, where are we in it? Because it's very hard for us to even think about what that means, right? Like practically. And then like how reactionary versus, are we thinking about this on a 1-year time frame or a 10-year time frame? If the answer is 1-year time frame, then you just kick him out of the app store, right? And you like, that's step one. And then you think about the long-term plan, but you have to kind of like cut it off and go. If you think it's not, it's more of a slow burn, which is an arguable thing, then like, Dave, I think we're back to the old Sam and Dave conversations from 15 years ago, which is like establish American identity and American digital citizenship, allow other people to opt into it, make it a first step on like actual immigration to the US, right? Like you're going to have a few competing spheres.
We went through this on one of the episodes, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But like, I don't know, 10 years ago, you didn't want to sign up for global entry because they scanned your eyes, right? I mean,
we're way beyond that now. Yeah. I mean, we're
I just used Claire yesterday. Love it.
My
love
23andMe was hacked a couple weeks ago. It's fine. It's good.
For what it's worth, though, I think, like, again, because I have had somewhat of an evolution on this, although I think I still fundamentally do the same things. Like I think what the highest level, the tech level is, you look at the internet and you're like, this is amazing and it is a free speech machine, but it's also a global surveillance machine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in the era of Pax Americana, when like risks are low, like we're crushing it, like, yes, we want to export things globally. Yes, like it's low barrier trade. Like, why wouldn't we say, hey, the internet actually is the American internet, right? And like, it is good for us to keep it as open as possible. And the threat is actually that on a 50 or 100-year basis, global surveillance crushes it if we don't get encryption and we don't protect the people.
Yeah.
I think the reality is I've gotten older and the world has changed dramatically. And I think we've lost the internet, right? Like in terms of like, we had the internet. It really was the American internet. We've lost that, right?
Yeah.
And if we've lost that, the good news is we're still the most dominant player, but like we need a ring fence and defend ourselves, right? And then kind of think about it as a competitive universe where, yeah, there's going to be a European internet, there's an American internet, there's a Chinese internet, and there's probably like everything else, right? And like the everything else just becomes a proxy war, right? Of who wants to spend time where.
What does the American tech stack look like? Like, what is it?
Well, I think it starts with identity.
Yeah, digital citizenship.
Okay, starts with identity. And then are there 3 cloud computing providers that are part of it and the rest aren't?
No, I think it's a framework where I think it's power to the people, right? Like we have to be extremely careful in how we do this. But Sam's right. Like this long conversation we've had is it starts with identity. You have to be able to feel safe and secure on the internet as an American, right? Like you feel safe and secure as an American inside of our country on land, right? Like you need to be able to feel that way on the internet. And that starts with identity. And
when you speak on the internet, you need to be able to say, not necessarily exactly who you are, but you need to be able to identify like this is a real American speaking versus like this is a bot versus candidly, I don't even care if it's a bot. It's one of the, 7.7 billion people that are not Americans, right? And have interests that aren't aligned with our country.
Why on the internet do you want to know if you're speaking to an American or not an American?
Because it matters. I think like the reality is like if someone's protesting something crazy going on in the world, like I feel differently about it if it's an American with a stake in our country who's trying to express it versus like a Russian bot versus like someone who has no interests aligned with us, right?
Yeah,
like,
and it's not about necessarily keeping people out. It's about being able to filter through and see that you're in the same room as a bunch of Americans or not.
It's so I have much less of a national identity than you guys do. That's so interesting. Brit, what about you? How do you
Well,
feel
I was also thinking about like how Meta, did you guys see that this got leaked this week, like the AI friend prototypes from Meta on Instagram? And so like,
these are like versions of the chatbots.
But you design your AI friend and it's like Brit, the Brit bot. Yeah. And so like, I'm just trying to think about how all this plays in together. Like, am I a digital citizen of America, but then the AI Brit is like has a watermark on her.
But isn't that kind of the point? It's like, I actually want to know when Brit is speaking. Like, Brit is a property holder in the US. Brit votes. Brit like has a
Oh my
stake in the
God,
country.
like landed gentry language.
Well,
Okay.
there's arguments that like not necessarily that, but like the idea that like we have a collective project, we work together, we have services that are shared, we pay
We
for
literally
things
pay
together.
taxes. Yeah.
Like, I want to know like who's voting with me versus who's, or like in my sphere versus just who's the unwashed, unknown identities. And like, yeah, there is a difference between digital Brit and actual Brit, right? And like, that doesn't mean digital Brit shouldn't exist. It doesn't mean that other voices can't exist. But I take it, if digital Brit is protesting for something versus actual Brit is saying, no, like, this is my position as a citizen who votes. I do actually meaningfully care about that very differently. So I'm all for AI, friends. Like, I've been arguing for a while that like people are lonely, and like, if the old social network thing was you come on and like find real friends, this will be like, here's what I like, generate a bunch of friends to make me happy. Like, I'm fine with that. But I think we need to be able to distinguish. The way people go crazy is when they lose track of what reality is. Like, that is how the world really ends, is you completely lose track of reality.
I think it's just interesting that you're solving that problem with a national lens, right?
Well, what else? I would love to have solved it peer to peer,
But
right?
it's not
like,
happening.
we're just
Blockchain can't solve this, guys?
No.
it can't.
I think that's like, this is the thing. Like, I love these technologies. Like, I was super hopeful 10 plus years ago that peer to peer identity could solve it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, there was this argument of like,
and that just for everyone listening. So that would basically mean that there would be some system where other people would be asserting your identity, like could verify.
And by the way, 5 years before that, I literally tried to do this with Facebook, right? Like, we tried to centralize it, and that didn't work, right?
Well, it could. I think that I still believe that could have worked, but it didn't in its time. And like, I think that window for that is lost.
Yeah.
Blockchain, super cool technology. I get 4 pitches a day because people know I love this stuff for like, oh, it's all about assertions and staking, and we can figure this all out bottoms up without the government.
Have you guys gotten pitches on the AI crypto companies? Because I'm starting to hear about those.
Yeah, they're around. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is a long time coming.
That's been a year of those. But the point is, like, I think the bottoms up systems, the bottoms up systems could have worked at a moment in history, and we didn't pull them off. The closest thing you have to a national ID right now comes from the phone company. It's your phone number.
Yeah.
Like, that is literally the closest thing we have, and it's poorly implemented and fraught with issues and da-da-da-da. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where like I feel like the clock ran out, right? And now we kind of have to go back to the most obvious solution, which is a shitty solution. Like, I don't like it either, right? But I just don't see any other way forward that's practical at this point.
And this solution again is sort of national identity woven through our digital experience so that there's clear, we're sort of going to help, we're going to determine what's real or not by deciding what's American or not.
Yeah, I mean, Jess, here's a really good example. So I won't say where or who. I have to do this in a way. I was at a table about a year ago, right around when ChatGPT was launching. And the table had several people that were deeply involved in the creation of this technology. Let's put it that way. So a bunch of AI.
What tech?
Of AI.
Okay.
Of AI.
Dave's at the best tables. I like Dave. I want to go to Dave's tables, but yes.
And there was a question asked at the table, which it was a very interesting conference that asks really interesting questions. The question was, you're part of a country and you're deeply dissatisfied with how the country's being run, and you would like to change the government of the country in order to, change it to your ideology. How would you do this, and what technology would you use to do this? And the folks from the AI side of the table said, "Oh, this is very easy." And the rest of us were like, "Oh, really? Like, why?" And the proposal was, well, you would simply take, this new GPT technology. You'd create 1 million bots. You would train them on the CIA's manual of how to influence and, basically this manual of how to develop an asset. And you would train the bots on how to do that. And then you would develop millions of people in the country over a year, 2 years times period using this bot. And you would slowly change their ideology to the ideology that you wanted them to be. And that is, I think, exactly the thing we're talking about here. If there are millions, tens of millions, like hundreds of millions people using TikTok in this country, and who's to know what is what and what is real and what is not. Right now, there's no way to know the identity of who's behind anything that's going on. And so that could already be happening and we wouldn't know it. And I think that's like the most simple way to think about this is like, what are you seeing? What are you reading? What are you watching on video? And what is the identity behind it is like a really simple and easy question to think about.
It's interesting. I want to think more about whether that identity has to be tied to a specific country or not, right?
I think it does so long as we vote and pay taxes.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, how you get there is a different question, right? Like, I do think that there
can at least be like interoperable, like our friends, the Europeans, can like come into our. I just think that like
it's very much like before World War I. Like before World War I, there are no passports, right? You literally just like showed up in a country and it was fine, right? And like you basically had a bunch of global conflicts, and you're like, oh, like you can still cross the borders, but like we kind of need passports, right? And like that was a big deal in its moment, and I just think we're like replaying a digital version of that. I'm not saying like I don't ever speak to Europeans or like they can't show up in my Twitter feed or whatever. But like I do think that like understanding when this stuff goes from being all entertainment based, where it's like doesn't matter where it comes from, to like actually impactful in terms of how we govern, how we go to war, how we defend people, etc. Like we're just so far past the moment of like being like, oh, we need to understand if we're gonna have democracy, if we're gonna have voting, if we're gonna have people actually have a voice. No, the entire world doesn't get to speak in America, right? For free. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's just not, it's just that simple, right? Like you don't have a state.
It's maddening.
Yeah, but guys, if we're not speaking to people around the world and becoming more isolationist, we're probably going to end up in even more conflicts.
But Jess,
I honestly believe
it's fine. We just need to know that who the people are at the table. That's all it comes down to. It's not about keeping people out.
Well, and look, I think it does.
Usually when you define these things and create barriers, you keep people out.
100%. I actually have no problem keeping a lot of voices out. Like, I think the reality is that like we are, this is like just such like our generation idealist thing to be full globalist. Like
yes,
we grew up in like,
totally.
But we're wrong. Like we have such a myopic view of history. Like,
well, but there are periods, there are times, and
you guys dressed up as the Roman Empire for Halloween. Do you recognize the irony here? Anybody?
I was the Greek side. I was going
the Greeks and the Romans.
The balance is not pure open, right? Like we lived again. I think it's just our generation has a messed up mentality about this, because literally, like we came of age as the Berlin Wall. Like the Berlin Wall, was down. Like we owned everything. Like we had won World War. Like I always thought, we were born like on the order of 40 years after the end of World War II, when like most of the entire world's economy was American, right? Like we have the most skewed view of globalization in history of citizens, right?
Good point.
And it's not that I don't believe in openness. I do. And like I believe that the world, like I think the world would be healthier and happier and like wealthier the more globalized it is. But I do think that like holding to this ideology of like our generation, which was born in such a unique time, and not recognizing when you're under attack is like a recipe for us really losing, right?
I mean, it's an excellent point, and I agree with all of that. But I think the solution of, retreating in a global world where
we're doing it on every other front.
It's not retreating; it's adding another tool. Adding another tool.
Visibility, transparency.
It's adding a digital passport. It's adding a digital identity. It's giving Americans a tool to be able to
value. And to value each other's voices more. Yeah. Like I value the voice of someone who votes in my country differently than I value random people screaming about some issue that may be bots, or they just may be foreigners with no stake in our country or a stake in destroying our country.
It's all about the implementation, right? I think, Dave, an opt-in digital identity passport for American citizens is an excellent idea, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but I just, there are.
I think it could be opt-in so long as we got to the point where we say, if you didn't opt in, you're probably not American, right? Like it depends on the framing of it. It's, the devil's in the defaults, right? Like I think saying everyone's opted in, you can choose to turn it off. Fine. And
then over time, what else? I mean, it's so funny that I'm taking this point of view because this is not the role I usually play, but then like, what else do you have to assert? right? So you assert you're American, then do you have to assert your gender? Do you have to assert your
No,
race?
I think this
Do
is
you have
about
to,
American.
assert your sexuality? Do you have to assert your
This gets back
job?
to our last conversation about VCs disclosing stuff. This is like why it's so maddening. It's like, no, you shouldn't disclose any of that shit.
No.
But apparently the far left thinks that you should, right? Like, which is wild to me, right?
But you really think that you're going to build a tool, a political tool, right? And that every 4 years you could have a change of regime. And that tool is like, I mean, again, I still think it's a good idea, but I also think we have to kind of think through. It's very easy to say the world has changed and we have to act differently, but there are going to be a lot of consequences to acting differently. And
I think this is the classic, like, done is better. Like, you have to move this thing where it's like, yes, we all can come up with 1,000 issues with this. I can, we for sure can. And we can spend the next 10 years debating the fine points while we get completely railroaded, right, on this type of stuff and lose. Or you act and you realize that it's not going to be a perfect solution. There are going to be collateral issues associated with it. The internet, when it was born, there was a very specific decision to not have an identity layer baked into the internet, like into TCP/IP. And it was smart at the time because, candidly, had there been one, it would have been very hard for it to grow.
Yeah.
Right. Like but it wasn't like unintentional. Like people were like, oh, we could make it so that identity is like at a base layer of the internet. We're like, no. If we do that, it's like too hard to plug into. We need an open system. Smart decision. Like, wouldn't have grown otherwise. But like, we're now 30 years later dealing with the fundamental consequences of that. And like, we can debate for the next 10 years in government or between ourselves as smart people what the perfect implementation is, or we can solve the immediate problem. And that could be say, hey, we're not going to come up with the system fast enough, so let's just ban foreign social media and we'll figure it out in the next few years. Or it could be, nope, like we need a race to get digital base identity, like built on the internet, and then have some rules about disclosure that are simple and they'll be flawed. But like, screw it, right? Like, I think this is what Silicon Valley is the worst at, right? And technologists is like when you cannot get to a fast solution, but you need one.
Which, by the way, where did this conversation start? It started with AI. And we're in a world now where we just saw a writer's strike, which is effectively based on, the rights and copyrights that are related to individual identities and how they're used in AI. We just saw, Leica Camera, the premier camera company in the world released a new camera last week that has an identity chip built into it to authenticate the identity of a photo. So, I mean, we're also going into a world with AI where this is also going to be like dramatically important in a way that even in social media, it wasn't as important. Like we've sort of made it this far with social media and it's kind of been fine. We could debate the nuances of all these issues, but with AI, it's like you really do actually need to know where all the bits came from. And that's
so we promised. I think it's a great point. I had missed that camera news. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
We promised the listeners some predictions, so let's wrap with those.
You promised predictions. What are your predictions?
Oh, Sam, come on! You love a good prediction.
I do love a good prediction.
I actually have a lot of predictions on with regard.
I get really nervous about predictions for some reason.
Oh, I love them. Every year we do a bunch of the information, and we've predicted like 3 CEO firings and 5 M&A deals. So,
what's your hit rate, Jess? What's the information's hit rate?
We looked at that a couple of years ago.
Pretty good.
It's not bad. It's pretty good.
All right.
And anyway. I'm really interested in what's going to happen on the business model side. I mean, it seems to me that the development, and Sam, was a great point about how we saw this year, the research and the business sides really collapse. And now I think because the costs of training are just getting astronomical and there's really no end in sight, no one's going to replace these H100s anytime soon. Then you're seeing, I think a real it's going to change the global capital landscape which maybe counteracts with some of the things we've seen with where we're talking about, because these companies are going to have to raise gobs of money from around the globe. But I think there's going to be a big question of the business models are going to go really B2B and how that is going to look from if companies are going to continue to pay top dollar for the latest model, or they can get the business performance they need out of less expensive models. And so basically what the enterprise business model around this looks like. And I think that's a key question going forward, because it will also shape the relationships between the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Microsofts, the Googles. Like it's
not complicated. It's just going to be an ROI question.
Right. Well, it's going to be an ROI for businesses.
And if the models aren't better, then they won't buy them.
They won't buy them. But you now have, the old model, right? You would see the big four, big five tech companies try to acquire the latest and greatest technology. That didn't happen in AI for a lot of reasons, including regulators wouldn't let it happen. And so instead, you're seeing these very strange partnerships. And in the beginning of the year, they were all exclusive partnerships: OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, Google. And now everyone's promiscuous because everyone needs capital. But the big tech companies are spending billions of dollars in these models. And it's very unclear what they're getting. And again, what the ultimate ROI will be on the technology. So those are very commercial predictions. But I think next year you could see the B2B revenue really take off if businesses are getting amazing performance. But these technologies are still so expensive and deployed in such specific use cases that I think instead you're probably going to see that most companies can get by with less expensive models, and probably still great for the cloud and SaaS industry. But I think it's going to raise a lot of questions about really the capital that went into these models, where the next round of capital is going to come from. So that's my sort of business side point of view. And I am just struck of how different, it's almost like this year, I'll save it because I don't want to step on some reporting that we're doing. So I'll save some insights for later. But any other predictions you guys want to add to the AI mix? What people might be using it for besides getting rid of microphone cords?
I just think that now that there's a clear label that has to be put on everything, you're going to start seeing in every app from Netflix to Spotify to your iBooks library, an AI tab, and everything will be filtered that way. And Dave and I actually got a note about a new AI music label starting up. I think my prediction is that I think one of these implementations is going to surpass the incumbent version. I think there might be an AI music label that becomes bigger than one of the current music labels at some point in the next 5 to 10 years.
I'll take my prediction will be the under on that, right? Which is, look, AI music is a really funny
surprise,
one.
Surprise.
Surprise. It's
more or less, Sam.
Look, we've gotten a lot of pitches too on AI music, but then my absolute favorite pitch I've gotten on it, this is obviously I put up this deck that was pretty critical of AI and startup investing. And this guy's actually, I've been doing quote unquote AI music mostly outside the US for the last 10 years. And what I do is I just basically use a bunch of synthesizers and some basic algorithms and generate all of the elevator music in the world. That's really
that's
cheap.
Amazing.
And he's making an insane amount of money doing this.
Awesome.
So it's I don't
But
do you
isn't
think
that
the
the same
elevator
point
music,
Brit's saying?
No, because it already exists, and he's making bank. There's no
I'm talking
AI.
about
Sam, we're talking about pop music over here.
Yeah, Sam.
No,
Sam,
I don't know.
we're not.
I'm invested in some. I've actually invested in some of these from actually before this wave of AI.
We have to sneak some pop music into this episode, no matter what.
Yeah.
They're doing fine, but I think nothing. AI will change nothing about the digital cheapo music generation world versus artists.
Can we do a whole episode on why Spotify's charts are not a meritocracy sometime?
Sure. I'll add to the list.
All right, we'll wrap.
Dave, did we get Dave's prediction? Yeah.
I was at another
table. Dave and his tables.
I was at another secret event last night, and we got to see an AI device.
The nice part about being at secret events is you can just make them up.
Yeah, totally.
He didn't make this one up. I have third-party confirmation on the existence of this event.
Yeah, and and this is talking.
That's peer-to-peer verification there, just in case you guys missed it. Okay.
So you've authenticated my identity. And this is our own book. We are investors in this, but I went into this event neutral, and I've actually been involved with this company, and I've seen it evolve throughout the time that it's been being developed, and it's about to launch. And we I went into it, and I was actually really inspired. And one of the things that really struck me about the future of AI, I guess there's two predictions that I've been thinking about a lot, and one of them is that I think that real-time language translation is much closer than everybody realizes. And this is a thing that we've been talking about for a really long time in technology. You've been able to pull out your phone and pull out Google Translate, and people will do that, but it's been just like slightly too slow. A lot of the translation models kind of don't work well enough. Like I noticed, we had somebody staying with us the last couple of weeks from Italy, and I spent the 2 weeks trying to talk to this person, and finding myself, I think we had about 25% language overlap, and we were kind of trying to talk to each other. And I thought it was interesting that I knew this, but I never pulled out my phone. Right. And I had this experience last night, just thinking about the fact that, wow, like language translation in real time, using AI models, and whether it's the iPhone or other devices that you might carry around, is actually much closer than we think, and it's going to be, I think, profoundly impactful on how we can communicate with people that you needed a literal person standing next to the person, and so that's
then we're going to ask for their digital identity, and then we're not good. Because
if Americans are trying to talk to Americans and the Chinese are doing the translation.
Okay, Dave, give us your last one. Let's end on.
Bye, everyone.
No, Dave had one more.
My last one is just that voice. I think voice is actually the battleground for AI, much more than we think. Like, we're spending a lot of time in tech land just like looking at how powerful these things are with our eyes and text. And I think that voice is actually going to be the premier battleground of AI in a way that we kind of aren't talking about right now. And so that's my other one.
Awesome. Guys, we covered a lot in this episode. It's going to be a tough one to headline. But great to chat as always. Thank you to our listeners, our viewers, our back channel. It's fun to be kind of rounding out the year with you all, and we've got lots of fun end of year content planned as well.
Everyone.
So give us a like, give us a share, give us a follow, give us a whatever, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
See you next week.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes, and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.